Hi, welcome to Esther's Laguna Woods show where every guest matters. Today we have a very special guest. He's a Holocaust survivor and his name is Sam Silberberg. Hi Sam.
Hi, how are you?
So nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. When I first saw you, when I first met you, I saw those numbers that you have here. What do those numbers mean?
The number in itself is of no significance except for the fact that it was a means of identification as far as the Germans are concerned. You cease to be a human being. You are just a number, because my father, who I was with in concentration camp, had a number ahead of me. My number is 178509. His number was 178508. Unfortunately, he did not survive.
We're going to get into that later. So where were you born?
I was born in a small town called Jaworzno, which is about 18 miles out of Auschwitz, where there was this huge extermination camp.
So at what age did you realize that something was wrong? What age?
Well, we first realized when something was wrong was in November of 1939. It happened to be an occasion when my grandfather, it was a bon voyage party for my grandfather who left for Palestine.
Yeah.
And I saw an assemblage of young men discussing something very serious. And then I was only 9 years old at the time, and I was nosed in. And an uncle of mine realized that I'm so curious, so he told me that what they're really discussing is the advent of Kristallnacht in Germany, where the Germans destroyed numerous synagogues and killed a number of Jews and destroyed many Jewish businesses.
So what happened? I mean, how did you end up in the concentration camp? How did it happen?
Well, during that conversation with my uncle,
Yeah.
we realized that the Germans, he told me that the Germans already had occupied Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia and parts of Czechoslovakia, and under the pretext that there are German-speaking people there. Okay?
Yeah.
So therefore, they are entitled to occupy it.
Yeah.
Now, if you realize how history has a tendency of repeating itself,
Yeah.
because in 2014,
Yeah.
Russia's Putin occupied Crimea under the same pretext the Russian-speaking people there. So it's a characteristic of extreme dictators, whether on the left or on the right, to use different pretexts to subdue other people.
You told me a story that a woman was holding her baby. Can you tell us about that?
No, we were, subsequent to this,
Yes.
in September 1, 1939,
Yeah.
I was by then 10 years old.
Yeah.
The Germans marched into Poland, and they occupied Poland. They marched through the entire country without much objection, like a knife through butter. And immediately upon the occupation, they started persecuting the Jews. They started initiating laws prohibiting Jews from owning businesses. So my father lost the business. They took Jews as hostage, and they killed my uncle in an adjacent town As a matter of fact, I killed 2 of my uncles in an adjacent town because they were taken hostage. They took my father hostage, and we had to call all the resources from the family to bribe the authorities in order to release him. And right afterwards, things got worse on a daily basis. The Germans, because they mobilized most of their young people to occupy the rest of Europe, were in need of a labor force. So they took able-bodied men, and they took my older brothers, for example, to a labor camp, which is a concentration camp, but a labor camp, as distinguished from an extermination camp. And the reason the Germans were able to execute that many people and establish the extermination camps in Poland rather than in Germany. Like, for example, Germany had a lot of labor camps, which were concentration camps, where people were incarcerated to provide labor for the German effort. And for this, they used only able-bodied men. And
so they came to your house and you were hiding with 24 people.
The Germans were conducting intermittent raids.
Yes.
To get able-bodied people.
Yes.
To take to labor camps.
Yes.
And at the same time, they took the feeble and weak that were not able to produce labor for the German effort, and took them into extermination camps.
Yeah.
It's then that they established, in order to facilitate the ability to really get people and take them into different camps and conduct those raids. They gathered most people, all the Jewish residents from different villages, and centered them into a ghetto, which was a geographic limited area, in order to make it easier for them to conduct the raids and collect the able-bodied men, and at the same time take the feeble and sick and women and children and send them into extermination camps.
So they came to your house, and your father knew that they're going to come, so he built a special...
My father built a hiding place.
Yes.
The reason he built a hiding place is so that when the Germans conducted the raids, so that they could not get us.
Yes.
Because they were going from house to house to take people into prison and into the extermination camps. Now, the way he built the hideout was he separated a certain section, walled off a certain section of the basement. Where you lived in the basement apartment, and left an opening against which he built a stove with a baking compartment. And that baking compartment was used as a means of entrance into the walled-off section. And that was built to facilitate about 14 to 16 people. And while we were at different times, there were different amounts of people, depending. Some friends were aware of this. So that when the Germans conducted the raids, we would hide into that hiding place.
So one day...
What happened was, well, that happened in Schrodula, which is a ghetto in the town of Sosnowiec, because where there were about 38,000 Jews centered in that Schrodula ghetto. And when the Germans raided when there was this huge, we noticed there was this huge raid
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
So we
You were
hid into that hiding place,
Yeah.
which was built to facilitate 14 to 16 people.
Yeah.
On that occasion, there were about 22 people in there, and we could hear the German, because it was a basement
Yeah.
unit,
Yeah.
we could hear the German trucks with the loudspeakers above us roaring in the street,
Yeah.
announcing for us to go to a center place where they could make the selection.
Yes.
We were aware.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, we hear the thump of German soldiers in the apartment above us.
Yeah.
The time, and it so happens that there was a woman with a baby among us hiding to get over the raid.
Yeah.
And the baby started crying while the Germans were thumping an apartment above us. And the Germans
So she was
heard,
yeah. So she was trying to quiet.
heard the baby crying.
Yeah.
So they went and took access and opened up the floor.
But she was trying to have the baby quiet.
Yeah, but while the Germans were thumping there,
Yeah.
and the baby started crying, the mother started cover the baby's face with pillows to subdue her cries so the Germans won't hear. But it was to no avail. By that time, the Germans heard it. They took access to the floor above us. It so happened that she, while doing this, suffocated the baby, and the Germans discovered us. They took access and opened the floor and ordered us to go to the selection center, the big selection center in town, in the ghetto.
So you ended up with your father. How did that happen?
Well, at that point, my older brother was already in a labor camp in Germany.
Yeah.
My sister had gangrene in her leg and she was in a hospital.
Yeah.
So it was only my younger brother, Ben Zion, and myself and my mother and father. So my father decided that I should go with him, and my younger brother would go with my mother to the selection place. And as we were walking to the selection place, it was a very dreary, cloudy day, and you could see all those people walking with their belongings. It felt like they're literally marching to their death. And as we reached the selection place, it was an awful sight because the Germans were separating husbands from their wives, and the women, able-bodied women from their children. They were ripping the babies off the mother's breast and dumping them on the ground. It was an awful sight with awful cries. And here I am with my father and realized that I don't want to be an impediment to my father being able to survive. So I told him, why don't you go ahead, because you have a profession and all this. I'll manage somehow. So my father went ahead. He was allowed, he was selected to go to where the able-bodied men were. When I saw this going on, so I decided, I waited until there was when the German guard that was doing the separation encountered a couple with 2 children, and he tried to separate the husband from the wife. And the children created a ruckus. The wife started crying and all this. So while the guard was busy with them, I managed to sneak in to the section, to the able-bodied section where my father was. And then was a secondary selection with a German officer, the SS officer, deciding what should happen, how to select the able-bodied people. So I was at a dilemma because I was young. I was only 13 plus years. I was only 13 years and a few months old when I saw this. So I decided that I need to do something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he will realize that I'm small. He will send me back to the section that is destined to be exterminated in Auschwitz. So fortunately, there was a construction site nearby. I was able to take a cinder block and put it in the back row and stood on top of the cinder block. So when the German came and made the selection, he asked my father, what is your profession? So he said, he is a construction worker. He does construction and so on.
And they wanted that.
And that's what they needed. So he sent him to the able-bodied man. Then he asked me, what are you doing? So I said, I'm a construction helper to a construction guy. So he asked me also to go to the able-bodied man. But I didn't dare step off the cinder block because if I step off the cinder block, he sees that I'm small. So I waited until he went further back. And then I went into the section where my father was. And that's how come that I was with my father to go into a labor camp. So we were loaded on trucks right then and there. And as we were on top of the trucks, we could see the whole assembly of people, hear the cries of the... It was a very torturous experience just to listen to the cries of how babies were killed and people were separated from their family and all this. I wanted to get a glimpse of my mother, but in the crowd, we couldn't see it. So we went, they took us to a labor camp called Annaberg. That's where our task was. It was a secluded camp in a forest. You could hardly see anything but the forest. And there, our function was to build barracks for a new concentration camp. We were there for 3 months, and then totally isolated from the world. Then they sent us to another camp called Blechhammer, which was a huge camp in which there were about 4,800 prisoners in Blechhammer. And there, while the camp itself was deep in a forest, our task, my father and I were assigned to different commando groups where we were led daily, shackled, 5 in a row, to the industrial complex where we worked. It was in Blechhammer also that we were given out numbers. We ceased to be identified as a human being. We were just considered a number. That's when I got my number. My father got number 178,508, which is 178,508. And I got 178,509, which is 178,509.
How was the food?
It was, we lived on a starvation diet. Basically, we were rationed a certain amount of bread, enough to be able to exist, but not enough to be healthy. So as a result, many people
They gave you soup?
were fighting for morsels of food when they distributed the soup, which is watered down.
Yeah.
So that they were fighting to be the last, maybe to get a few morsels of carrots or potatoes or veggies in their soup. And it was an awful sight. And people had to go to work every day. And we were led about 2.5 miles
Every
daily
day? Every day.
to the
Shackled.
industrial complex.
Shackled.
And back. We were shackled back and forth. It was an awful existence. And I was extremely agitated because it so happened that my father, who was a very Orthodox Jew, and he prayed to God, and he had hope that with God's help we can escape. I said to him, you got to do it on your own. I mean, I wanted to escape. I felt frustrated. He warned me how dangerous it is to escape unless you have where to go. So your chances of getting caught are greater than your chances for survival. So you got to be careful to make sure you plan
Oh
it
my
correctly.
God. We hardly touched anything.
Okay.
Wow.
And I had
definitely
this
have to do it again.
discussion with my father because I was always willing to escape. I was always looking for chances.
Yeah, one time you escaped, but you went back there because if you escaped, you would take 10
the
people.
only way you could escape without there being ramifications to fellow prisoners, the rule was if a prisoner escaped, they would kill 10 other prisoners. So the only way I could escape if when we were on the industrial complex and Allied planes came and bombarded, so it's presumed that you died during the bombardment, then there were no ill effect for fellow prisoners.
Tell us about the Death March.
Pardon me?
The Death March. The march that
Well, it was before the Death March, I must tell you that I was having constant discussions with my father. I loved my father. I respected his religious beliefs, but I disagreed with him. So in my conversations, you need to imagine a situation where a teenager, 14 years old, is in such a situation with his father, and the discussion is based on, I was frustrated. So I said to him, look, I am going to escape, or if I don't escape, I'm going to die anyhow, so I'm going to commit suicide. So my father said to me, look, you got to have faith. Because if you don't have faith, you can't survive. Let me tell you something. We were going back and forth. So he said, I'll tell you the story about two flies. They both fell into cream. One of them was a believer or non-believer, but since you are not a believer, I'll say one of them was an optimist, the other one was a pessimist. They both fell into cream. The pessimist had no faith in God, no faith in himself, nothing, and drowned in the cream. The optimist had faith. He says, I got to survive this, I got to get out of here. He started flapping the wings back and forth, kicking the legs, flapping the wings, until he made butter out of the queen and got out. So let this be your lesson to get out. I was always willing to get out. And sure enough, a few months afterwards, in the winter, there was a snow. And as we were led from the industrial complex to the concentration camp, I noticed a woman walking, dredging in the snow. And I realized
It was your mother.
that it is my mother, so I nudged the guy next to me because I was in the middle of a shack of 5 people. So he said to me, "Shut up, kid. Don't be loud, because if they catch her, they'll take her in."
When you were in the concentration camp, I mean, a lot of people died. I mean, if a person did not feel good for 2 days, they gave him a shot, you told me?
If they failed to go to work
For 2 days.
in 2 days, they just injected him with a shot and killed him and cremated him. That was the law. That was the way it was.
So in the concentration camp, you smelled a lot of body,
We could
burning
smell
body.
the smoke, the chimney from the crematorium. We lived on Barrack 15, which was right next to the crematorium.
Yeah.
So we could feel this air, had a certain aura of sweetness. You knew that this is the
Well, you know
corpse.
what? We're running out of time. I mean, we hardly touched anything. It's already 29 minutes or 28 minutes. We're running out of time. We have to continue part 2. Yes. Thank you for watching, and next time we might have him back again. Thank you.